Adam Kungu ngegange njagala kwandiza mu kanyomero kano hot car part 9 mutukubira torch mu nsonga ez'enjawulo ezigenda mu maaso mu ggwanga. We are streaming live ku mikutu gyaffe gyonna, genda ku Facebook, genda ku YouTube, genda ku Twitter. Oyinza n'okubeera nga otwegattako ng'oyita ku all other PTV channels, DSTV, GoTV, Star Times, Free to Air n'emikutu emirala gyonna ojja kubanga otufuna bulungi nnyo. Well, mu kanyomero kano twalabye omukulembeze wa Uganda General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni wiiki ewedde ku Lwokutaano ng'asinkana some selected media practitioners mu ggwanga era nga enkyonaku olwaleero we are going to have a discussion in that regard. I've seen so many Ugandans abalowooza nti bannamawulire abatunuulirwa nga ba senior, and I'm putting senior in quotes, tebasobodde kujjayo kifaananyi kituufu ddala. They didn't concentrate on the pertinent issues affecting the media and the country at large. How impactful was the engagement of the president and some journalists? That is our discussion this morning. Erangam Studios nina very senior journalists, Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya kuva ku Baba Media wali awo nga bw'omulaba, ate era nina wali wanagamba nti Kungu ani yamuwa obwassa but that Simon Muyanga Lutaya g'oli mu background naye nga you produce okoze bulungi. Then nina mwami Batte gw'olaba atudde wakati awo, a very senior journalist also ava mu lupapula olwa Uganda, it's a news agency, Uganda Radio Network, wali wano. He has very strong views ku nsonga nyingi olenga nti Kungu egwolese ne wotaleeta balala, but is here wali atwegaseeko. I also saw him comment, ku engagement eyo nga ina ebigambo bye. He will be telling us later on today. Ate nga another journalist mwami Andrew Irumba okuva mu Spy Uganda. Later on ku simu tujja kwegattibwako mwami Arinaitwe Rugendo.
I wouldn't want you to miss the Irumba tagline, the man who speaks
what others fear. He's here. Arinaitwe Rugendo tujja kumufuna ku simu bw'obanga wagoberedde engagement gye twabadde n'omukulembeze w'eggwanga President Kasaruderinya Arinaitwe Rugendo. Ono w'olugambo ono simanyi yali wa red paper nga sebo yenze. Atujja kumufuna ku simu naye ayina ensonga ze still again very strong views ku nsonga yemu. I'll be asking questions, they will be answering. Kiriza ndoza bakulamuseeku mu ddakiika emu buli omu abatannakulamusaako tubeere nga tutandikira. Mwami Beka battesobuuza ku bantu
emusinziira mu bitundu bya Uganda yonna ne wabweru waayo tubalamusaako mu kyebale gye mutuusaako engalo abali mu Gandalo ne Gandalo ly'ennaku zino zibu naye abalifunye kale tubaagaliza obulungi, tubaagaliza omwaka ogujja okuba nga guli better than guno gwe tukola ki guno gwe tulimu, kubanga gubadde gwa kusikamuguwa, gubadde gwa kukanula maaso, naye katusabe Katonda atuwa omwaka ogunaddako oguli better than guno gwe tuvuddemu gwe tugenda okuvaamu munaku ntono.
Very proud Mutoro, who speaks what others fear.
But also fears what others
njagala kutwala mukisa guno nange ate okubeebaza mwebale okulaba TV yaffe Nganzi Baba TV, ate nenebaza ne mukulu Kungu nenteekateeka yonna nga bweri management gyokola naye mwebale nenkyukakyuka gyendabye physically wano kubanga guno mulundi gwange ogusookerera ddala okujja wano okuva mu rebranding. Ntuse wano ndi musanyufu nange manyi nti abantu abatukyaza balina direction gye balaga. When you see there is some positive positive change. Ate nenjagala kusanyukirako n'abo bonna abali mu Uganda abalyabwe naye kati leero 26 wabula ennaku ntono nnyo tuyingira January school fees etandike. So muzadde munange weeyagala engolekamu nze jo namaze Christmas yange n'abasiraamu kubanga abakatoliki n'abaprotestant n'abalala bonna buli omu afumba mu makage kati abasiraamu nze mikwano gyange gye nasembeza jo nange mbalinze ku idi yammwe omutampite
inshallah tujja kuyita okay abali nnyo mwami Andrew Katusabe Iroma. Well, to begin this discussion simanyi wa producer wange ali set ampeeko ku bimu ku bitonotono ebyabadde nakasero omukulembeze w'eggwanga ng'ayogerako eri eggwanga. If he's set, let's have it just now.
Muyanga omusosodde.
Okay, nga producer weteekateeka onage muyanga omusosodde muyanga yakidde ku ssaawa 12 wano n'alamusa ku bantu. Okay, ndoza nandike ne Beka Batte nga producer wage yeteekateeka. Beka, njagala kutandika ne comment eno from another journalist omumanyi Joe Elunya senior.
Very critical guy.
Yes, he has said, imagine kungu. Okay, ndoza tutandikire one. Did any of you in studios now that attended the presser ask issues that are pertinent before the president? Some of the guys sounded so ridiculous that the president had to tell them they are asking irrelevant offside things. Some couldn't even speak English, and they said they wanted to ask questions in Lusonga, Uganda, where they are well conversant. Mwatusaze Joe Elunya. Let me just begin with you, Beka. What do you make, first of all, of this comment and what you saw on Friday?
I think that is a fair comment. With all fairness, it is a fair comment. I watched in Ewe. Apart from a few, Sagala, I don't want to use a general brush or kuba painting amwena. Njagala mbere selective. Mwabade banamawulire nakugambye kunga abantu ngabasatu babana. Biboka babade banamawulire. Abasigadde babade bakada ba NRM. Abagenzo okuwuliriza party chairperson ng'ayogera. How do you waliwo munamawulire omu yabuuziza president, you see there are some, you know, like these radios, they all spend all the politics the whole day from morning to evening. They don't want people to go and do things of enkulakulana. They are confusing people. Really, you are a journalist and you have gone to a president to ask questions, and that's what you say? That you are even indicting the very media you are working for. That the media, what it is doing is to grant a platform to banabya bufuzi kwogera bya bufuzi paka teri kadde kakula kulana kwogera kunkula kulana nengo ogenze president nagamba wamma ekyo kituufu era ngamba UBC tandika okulaga ebyenkula kulana to counter them nengo agenze mutaga ya bannamawulire.
But Beka, intention ya president we need to start from there. What was the intention of calling for this engagement? Was it called to advance agenda ya media y'abannamawulire, concerns z'abannamawulire mu ggwanga, or it was basically intended to discuss national issues?
You see, in the mwami Kirunda yagenda n'ateekayo ku mukusu gwa State House nti ku Lwokutaano president agenda kusinkana bannamawulire an interactive session with the journalists. He put there, and I asked, how does one join that group? He didn't respond. And you know, I know Chirunda normally responds very quickly. You say something very small, and I tagged him. I know he read it. He didn't. Up to now, he has never replied to me. How one joins the group which was going to State House? He didn't respond to me. So it means kati kati yanzize muna kati ninda kunzira mukubanga nandi agadde okubeera maaso ga president. You see, because you see, let me tell you, president abamwetolodde president abamukolera. Museveni, one time I heard him say nte we munvuma nga nange mbavuma sirina mumwa. Those who are around the president think that the president cannot defend himself. So that's why they will go and handpick people whom they believe are friendly to the president. They have tagged me maybe critical of the president, and I don't take blame for that. I have tried to cover the president 4 times. They clear me. When I go at the venue, my name is struck off the list. So of course, if they can struck me off a list where the president is at Koran, I'm not going to have an opportunity to ask him anything. How do they put me on a list of those who are going to go and ask him direct questions. So first of all, when you meet the president and you are the journalist, first of all, he's not meeting you in your individual capacity as Kungu. You get? The only reason he met you is because you work for Baba TV, you work for Radio 4. That is the only reason he met you. And working for those media organizations, it means intoina abantu bokolachi bowereza. So the concerns you have gone to present to the president are the concerns of the people you are serving. You get? So
those issues we're talking about were actually fronted. If you followed whatever transpired. Ensonga yasoose mukwano gwange made insereko sebuliba wa CBS yabuza kutaka naga evictions zisusse. I think that was a very valid question in regard ku bulamu bw'abantu. Muganda wange Stephen Dunstad Busuulo yayogedde ku nsonga ya security no torturing allegations za torture nga security yazikola. You can't dismiss worthiness y'ensonga.
Kankubulire abantu ababuuliza ebibuuzo ebikola amakulu. Stephen Dunstad Busuulo problem ye yabadde nti at the end ekibuuzo n'akyogereramu ebigambo bingi nekibulira in the middle. Wanga badde ayagala kwogera ate n'ayagala okukiddamu. Agamba tumanyi mu judiciary teri bantu abantu bamala obudde ku remand, but owa remand muwanjawulo ku bwe batokyalinga kubanga bwe batokyalinga oba babprotectinga abamu never even end up in court. But that was a good question. Wabadde Mubiru eyabuuza ekibuuzo ekiri direct kubanga president bujavayo ne yeegaana nti bananga abatokyalinga abantu tetubamanyi. Mubiru era ne president yamugambye Mubiru ogenda kunyambako okunoonya abantu bano. That was good. Mubiru omulala yabuuza lwakubane n'akiteekamu ebyobufuzi Lugendo ng'abuuza kubasala ebikondo bino, abuuza kubasala ADF kyekiki. Yabuuza ekibuuzo. Nawe ekibuuzo kyo wabuuza kyabadde kirungi kubanga kyabadde time oli president ne Russia yabadde mu America Joe ng'ate tumanyi nti Museveni o Uganda mu lutalo lwa Ukraine ne Russia almost on the part of Russia. So that was a good question. Ababuuziza ebirala obuuza mbu simanyanga, imagine ogenze kusigana president ogenda mubuuza ekibuuzo kimu n'obuuza nti sebo kakati president abantu bakalubirwa okufuna esente z'emyoga bakole batya. Really? N'ogenda maaso ga president to ask one question and you think the most pertinent question of all of them is to ask nti abantu bakalubirwa okufuna ez'emyoga. Nobuuza nti president sebo waliwo abajja ku radio ne boogererako tukoze tutya. Nobuuza president mu Busoga baazuddeyo Gorodi kakati tukoze tutya okumusima abantu bave mu bikaado bagende mu Gorodi. You have gone to meet the president. Nogamba president seven mu Northern Uganda waliwo abanoding disease tukoze tutya. The president ngoino omukisa gumu mu mwaka, and that's the damn question you're asking. Waliwo ebibuuzo ebiri pertinent. For example, ekibuuzo kya kidnap absolutely ate bw'oba obuuza ekibuuzo president mumukiriza ku getting away with it bw'amala okuddamu answer tematiza gwe ekibuuzo kyogeze nakyo kisuule zimbira ku kiri kyakoze eki kyaddamu because the answer is giving it's not intelligent, si ntuufu, si teraga kigenda mu maaso. Have a follow-up question kubanga bye biruma abantu buuze mutabani wayagala kukwata bukulembeze bw'eggwanga tulaba enkyukakyuka maje. Those are the real issues which are affecting the people. Oba bye bigenda mu maaso tali n'omu yakikoze eki yakinyezeeko abuuza myoga. Emyoga tukyagaza ki ng'okimanyi akasembayo emyoga mulimu trillion emu bw'ogatta sente za State House ne Office of the President almost a trillion. Naye Museveni agamba nti bannayuganda okuba mu bwavu agenda bawa trillion emu PDM. Era naawe munnamawulire nojja nomala obudde ng'obuuza okimanyi for example tekisoboka kujja bantu mu bwavu na trillion emu nga president amaka ge galimu almost trillion emu. N'ofuna omukisa gumu okubuuza president n'omubuuza sebe tugenda kufuna stage emyoga nga you know for a fact that emyoga 1 trillion cannot take people out of poverty. It is just a gimmick. So all the questions you should have asked, that was the list of the concerns of the people.
Simon Muyanga Lutaya, do you share the same school of thought? Mr. Batte seemed to be so much disappointed. I
don't want to say we may share same sentiments, in some instances and some instances. One, I hope you have agreed that the language of broadcast should be English.
It should be a mixture of both languages.
Okay. I can use English for now. One, for you to make a fair evaluation of what happened, you need to look at the three parties independently. First, the organizers. Batte. Because the list and the power to determine who attended this presser was entirely in their hands. It is actually them who can explain to you why they invited Adam Kungu and not Batte. It is them who knew why they invited you and not me. It is their own sentiments, like Baker says, I agree with him. The people around the president think that he cannot defend himself or that he gets angry with those who ask critical questions. And I disagree with them. The many times I've faced the President Yoweri Museveni, I have asked him questions that other people don't want to hear, and he has actually answered them very well. I'll give you an example. There is a press conference that happened in 2005. At that time, Dr. Kizza Besigye was out of the country. He was in exile. And he was claiming that he would like to come back, but he does not have a passport. At that time, Amelia Chambers was his press secretary. So I asked the president, I said, Mr. President, we have an election in 2006. Your party and yourself believe you are the strongest contenders to have. How will it appear to you that there is a man who wants to battle you in the ring, Dr. Besigye, but he is in exile? It would appear like you are fighting with somebody whose hands you have tied. If you really think you're strong and your party is strong, why don't you allow Besigye to return? He said, only that? Yes. He said, even if he returned, I would still defeat him. And said, Amelia, I hear Besigye needs a passport. Please follow up. Let him have his passport. Let him return here. And we do, oh, Muyanga Taya, Mwana Wabantu. Yes, you say Mwana Wabantu. The others are whose children? Okay, that is sort of distorted. I said, fine. In the following day, the New Vision carried my question as its lead story. Museveni says Besigye is free to return. Although in the attributes they don't write that. I've seen the unethical way we do things. They'll hear that say a question asked by Muyanga Lutaya of CBS. Then I was working for CBS. It was the lead question. And from then, the public began to debate the issues of Besigye's return. Ideally, if that was today, many people would not allow me to go close to the president. Because they say, abuuza ebibuuzo ebitategerekeka. This president, you see, this Museveni I know, is one who wants provocative and challenging questions. And is able to, and when you ask serious questions, you see him trying to bring every facts and statistics to answer you. Now, we need to ask the organizers, found, if Mr. Batte believes that the people who appeared before the president for this presser are feeble in mind, he's simply indicting the organizers for having made that selection, because it is not Museveni who selected, it is the organizers. That's one. The other category was the people who were invited. Normally, not even here alone, but even in many countries, pressers, these journalist interactions with the president are normally for senior journalists. Every media house would want to deploy their best. Under normal circumstances, unlike now, when Amelia Chambers and who else was still press secretaries, they would write to the media house. So the letter inviting Kungu would have come to Baba TV. The one inviting Batte would have gone to Radio Network. And the one inviting Andrew Numba would have gone to Spy Uganda.
Are you sure that didn't happen?
You'll come in.
No, I'm just asking.
If it happened,
I don't know.
If it happened, he will let us know.
I don't know. You'll let us know.
You will bring evidence.
You'll bring evidence if it happened.
I'm sure he has it.
When the right to say Mr. Valieku for Baba TV or anybody, the company selects their best and says, you have assigned Adam Kungu for this activity because they think it's their best. Now, you are saying that happened. I want to say...
I'm asking, are you sure?
I am picking from Batte's words because Batte said that he wrote to Mr. Chirunda Faru to ask him how do
What is the
people
criteria?
get, what is the criteria? Now, the fact that Batte asked means he was wrong. He would have waited for his boss at Uganda Radio Network to tell him. The fact that he has a personal approach to ask Kirunda meant that he knows that you can actually ask Kirunda directly and get what you want. Otherwise, he would just be told by his bosses. For example, if you are invited and your invitation came through an authority in Baba, well and good. Now, that's the category of the people who went there. So, whatever, as Batte is saying, whoever went for this presidential press interaction represented their media house. The stupid thing we do is that people tend to think that they invited you for who you are, which could also happen that they invite you
As Kungu.
As Kungu.
Maybe as an as an individual.
But the ideal would be that they invite you for that media house you represent. That's why I want to ask my brother Batte to understand those who asked questions in Rusoga. It's not that they don't know English. For example, Mr. Anyole Innocent, he's a teacher. I and Anyole went to Makere University to study Obusomesa. He was a teacher at GGSS. But because you said the audience they represent, he asked a question in Rusoga because he's now the radio manager at Rusoga 1. And for his audience, that was appropriate. So do not take that whoever asks questions in Rusoga do not know English.
I also saw a CBS representative
You
asking in
understand?
Uganda
Because of that audience. And he said, well, he said, you represent your audience.
Yeah.
So for him, and the question is asked of Ebikado and Minrose there, the audience he serves is asking, Ebikado byaife byagwa. Tulikuda ateneri ebyobuga egebindi ebyomuyitaka. If abava mu bikado bajja kutugana kusima bino babijaluyi. That's what his audience wanted to hear. And for me, I applaud him 100%. He did exactly that. Now that's the category of the people invited. Did the people invited know that they were not there in their own right, but as representatives of the houses they serve? And not only the media houses, but the audience they serve. That's category number 2 of the parties. And the last party is the host, Mr. Museveni himself. Because this is the president, an annual event, perhaps Mr. Museveni knew long enough what would be coming than the journalists invited. So he prepared. So first of all, he knew that this is what he would have. Museveni, unlike these days, has always been too close to the media, very friendly. And he does not, he knows when to use journalists to get what. Now, this is what we do. That in any communication, there is what we call the intention. Why you communicated. Mr. Museveni and the organizers knew the intention of this media interaction. Did the journalists know the intention? If they did they drive their intention or his intention? That's how I look at the 3 parties that appeared before him. First, I would exonerate the president. For him, if you sent me
he achieved his mission.
He achieved his mission. The organizers achieved their thing. The activity took place on calendar.
Welcome back. Adam Kungu, Uganda tuli mu hot cup at 9 tukuba torch mu nsonga nga bwezulya media interaction n'omukulembeze w'eggwanga. What were the highs and lows? Was it impactful or it wasn't? Owulidde Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya, muganda wange Beka Batte, njagala kudda wa Andrew Irumba, but before that waliwo n'atula bamuyita Charles Hammer Odeng. Again, Mr. Kungu, what Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya is telling us is absolute truth. The people who guests want to protect Museveni in their, okay, but the president is capable of responding to every question. I experienced it when I hosted President Museveni on one of the dinners. I was the lead organizer on behalf of the team. The advance team told us to remove Simon Kagwa Njala as MC at the last moment. The reason is he was DP and he could ask wrong questions to the president, Charles Hama Odenga. I can't verify what he's saying independently, but he claims that happened. Well, Mami Andrew Irumba, I also saw you write certain things somewhere related to the same issue. Do you think journalists that represented us before the president did not meet or were below the average in your view?
First of all, I want to agree with Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya on the context of the criteria, and he also talked about it, Mr. Batte. The criteria is important because it is through the criteria that we are able to sieve the people that are capable to represent the media. Mr. Kungu, you know that I'm a president, I'm a leader in the media industry.
Yes, I do.
Online. I'm a CEO of not one media house, but two. And I've been nurtured for over 15 years in the media. At least I have some experience. But can I tell you, I am not annoyed that I was not invited, but how I wish I had been invited. And during that time, when they were at Nakasore, I was actually at the president's office at Parliament. Me, I was meeting General Isoke, the head of anti-corruption unit, State House. And so, you see, I'm a journalist who actually should have been part of those, even to say, I think this one, I would have been given an opportunity to choose, but that did not happen. So, that's one. Number two now is, did they represent the media interests? But was the agenda about media? The agenda. The mission of President Museveni and the organizers, was it about understanding media issues, media problems? It was about understanding the national issues.
Who determines that? How do you know the intention of this engagement? Because that's what Sir Simon Muyanga is asking. Biki ekigendererwa kya engagement eno kyabadde ki era okusinziira ku depending from where you see it. Ebigendererwa byabadde ku side eyaba organizers oba side eyabo be bayise.
You see, I think the new leadership of PPU now is trying to use the same template other countries do with media, like America, like UK, that there is a session for media interaction with the head of state. That interaction is not normally about media industry. It's about national issues. So, on the other point, you may not accuse these people for raising issues they feel the society is concerned about than the issues that are affecting you, Mr. Kungu, as a media industry. Because Mr. Lutaya says these journalists and the media houses, therefore, that you are going to represent in the State House, are just, these are careers for the audience that they serve. So actually, bagenze eri bamba de tag ya Baba TV, naye Baba TV eina audience jewereza, audience jewereza ebirowozo kungu byatwala byebino ku representing audience eyo. So not necessarily Baba TV. Baba TV bwoba oyagala engagement ekwata ku ggwe ng'omuntu eyesobola okubeera ndowooza ndala. Naye olwaleero bagadde abanamawulire abalina audience baweereza naye audience zirina issues. Issue emu gye nalabyewo eyeerumu abantu ya ADF. Issue endala power vandalism. Power vandalism omuntu ajja by the way nalike Dubai bakwata Dubai nsi ya ddungu. Noye kimanyi balina green kusinga Uganda.
True.
Bakwata pipe y'amazzi buli muti ne bateekako akatuli. Tewali muntu agikwatako. Ne Uganda kati bagala na the president ateesa. Bakwata abasirikale babateeke ku buli kikondo ky'amasanyalazi.
Do you know how that cost? Do you know how costly that
It's
is?
possible anyway.
But do you know how costly that is? So eyo nsonga Batte asobola n'omunenya lwaki agireese, is that really an issue? Naye ku muntu omulala naddala ku bantu abali mu business nti factory yo ejjinza ey'emifaliso egaddwawo okumala emyezi 2 tekola kubanga ebikondo babimenye. To that businessman
It matters.
it matters. N'abakozi ababadde bakolera babagamba muddeyo eka paka bumeme bwenaleeta ki bweneekola bweneetereza amasannyalaze. That's an issue. Ekyokubiri bayogedde ku security abductions, ekibuuzo kya mukulu Dickson ekyokukwata abantu ne drones, abantu security ne gasifa ababayina ate oluvannyuma ennaku 3 ne musuula mu kkubo. It is a pertinent question. Omulala yogedde ku Facebook, kuggwalawo kwa Facebook, okimanyi bulungi nti ensonga tubadde tugyogerako every time I meet UCC and NAB.
So are you suggesting,
bayogedde ku regional.
Andrew, are you suggesting nti waliwo ensonga ziri pertinent ze baakutteko wadde
Yes.
tezabadde exhaustive tezaweddeyo?
Mukulu Nsereko yayogedde ku land evictions. Gwe omanyi bantu bameka abasula tebeebase lwa kutya kubagoba mu mataka gaabwe. So n'olwekyo njagala kulowooza nti abannaffe abo tubeebaze, naye tusabe abateekateeka nti interactions zino zisobola okubeera quarterly. Because if you give a whole year 365 days 1 or 2 hours to president, Batte ayina ye kati kyawulira oli kye yaliyogedde naye teyafunye budde bukibuuza. Oluusi yalibadde akibuuziza if the interactions were quarterly. Olwaleero kyatabuuziza yalibadde akibuuza in the next 3 months. Naye opportunity tekoze ki teriwo. Ekyokubiri criteria gye bogeddeko nkulu nti kati leero bwe yaba atutte kungu in the next 3 months batwaleyo omulala.
Okay, njagala kufuna katono nnyo.
The list they invited is now the permanent list for all presidential activities.
Okay.
Which is wrong.
It can only be edited if one of them starts speaking differently from
Simon and Andrew plus my brother Batte. Njagala kudda but katandike ndoza tusooke tufune Arinaito Rugendo. He was one of those journalists actually that participated in this engagement. Arinaito, a very good morning to you, my brother.
Good morning to you, my brother Mahat, and to the viewers.
We understand you're following. Where are you this morning?
I am deep down in my village. It's in Wampara district. That's on your way to Zungamo. Just enjoying the Christmas holiday.
Okay. Should I start by welcoming you back from the media engagement that some people are actually saying it was below the expectations? I've seen some senior editors comment and they're saying you journalists that represented them did not ask pertinent questions to the head of state.
I don't know what they mean by pertinent questions to the head of state. Because first of all, the engagement was limited. 2 hours, actually less than 2 hours. And we were 40 journalists. And then each one limited to 1 question. I saw you there, I met you there, and you remember, many journalists were insisting that, they needed more time. Personally, I had 5 questions, which I had to really squeeze into 1 question. So, I can say, on one hand, they might be right that we didn't ask the pertinent questions according to them, because I don't know who defines which pertinent question. Because right now, there are questions that were asked about the economy. The economy is pertinent to everyone in this country because we know prices are high, inflation is very high, and we have a lot of economic squeeze in the microeconomy, and so therefore there's a lot of destabilization within the economy. Those questions were asked; they came out very well. We asked questions about security because we have issues concerning security. Questions about abductions. These are issues that are concerning people. Somebody asked a pertinent question about Facebook. Facebook has been a platform for young people and others and companies that use it to promote their businesses. That's a pertinent question. There's a question that was asked about the ongoing vandalism in the electricity sector. That question is very pertinent, in my view. You asked, for you I remember, you asked a very good question about Uganda's stand, neutral stand in the Ukrainian-Russian war.
Yeah.
And that is a war that has affected all the countries around the world. It has affected shipments, it has affected so many other activities that drive the global economy,
Okay.
global security.
Arnold, there is a question.
That this will really work.
Yes, there's a question of the people that were selected to engage with the president. Some people think maybe much more better people, the criteria that was used to invite you, some of you to go and interact with the president. People think maybe the criteria would have been more clear, more understandable, easily defined.
In my view, I don't know how many journalists we have in this country, and so therefore they wouldn't invite everyone. But I'm not privy to the criterion they used. Maybe we should look at the caliber. If they asked about the caliber, that would be a question that can be answered, because the criterion is not ours. It's the discretion of the presidential press unit. But the caliber, I don't know whether there is a problem with the caliber, because these are senior journalists. I have been a journalist with a proven record for 23 years. Right now, I think in my 23rd year, you yourself and everyone, Dalton, there was Barbara Kaija, several others. But there could be questions around the caliber, which I think can inform the feedback for the presidential press unit to feed on, and maybe next time engage. But for me, the critical issue here is that the president has decided to change the mode of engaging the media. So we could now learn from this moment and begin to engage. And we were suggesting at the end of the session, I talked to the PPS, and I told him, I said, please, let's have these at least every 2 months, and even keep changing.
Okay. Yes. Do you think that engagement was impactful and perhaps fruitful?
Very, very, in my view, very fruitful, because I have been following comments on social media, especially. I have been getting feedback from people who are talking about the kind of questions that were asked.
Muyanga Lutaya has a question for you here. I have Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaya. Yes, he's here and he has a question for you.
I'm asking Rugendo. Yes, I'm asking, is the question of impactful is misleading? It was supposed to be impact on who was supposed to impact the other, and how, in one day of question.
I don't seem to hear the question.
He's wondering who was supposed to impact on who. When I say, or when we say that the engagement was impactful, on who? On the people, on the media, on the side of the president? He seems to suggest that it's a vague question.
I think for me, in my view, of course, measuring impact is a process. I agree with you, it's a process. However, in my view, I think it has been impactful in terms of feeding information gap on some of the critical areas. There's been an issue about ADF. What are the issues around ADF? There's an issue around the vandalism in the electricity sector. There were issues around the war in Congo. There were issues around the economy, inflation. There were issues about trade. There were issues about roads. We saw those journalists that were asking about concerns from people who have been evicted from wetlands, and they have no choice, they have no other way, road, those are having problems with that information. We were able to get some clarity on some issues. I think that's where I can feel the impact to begin with. But as we go along, the impact can only be felt when the government implements some of the issues raised by journalists. And I saw the president directing the prime minister to actually engage some of the journalists that had asked some particular questions. And I think, in my view, as journalists, as media, it is important now to follow up and say, yes, OPM, the president talked about this road, the president talked about this market, the president talked about an alternative income for people who have been chased out of the wetlands because of the policy on the environment.
Okay.
So these are the things as journalists that we could follow up, but whether the implementation in that.
Okay, as Arnett, as we let you go, someone again here is asking, how were you invited? Were you invited as an individual, or you were invited through the media organization you work for? Because some people think the criteria was not proper. Some think, PPU should have, used the bosses of media houses, that we are inviting Baba TV, and it's incumbent upon Baba TV to select who they invite, rather who they send to engage with the president.
I received a phone call. That's correct. I received a phone call.
You received the phone call?
And they said, I received a phone call and they said, we want to invite your media house to an audience with the president. And preferably, we would want you particularly to come and ask pertinent questions. And that is how I said, okay, I think I can come and represent my media house. That is, in my case, that's what happened.
Okay, my final question to you, sir.
Yes.
Do you think you achieved what you wanted as the media, specifically? Because I've again seen some people say there are problems affecting the media that the president ought to have known directly through you.
Yes.
And none of you that attended this engagement raised issues concerning the media.
Actually, it's a very good question that you just asked, and I agree with them. Why do I agree with them? It's because this was like a hush event. I think sort of a pilot from what I noticed, which is like sort of a precursor to other engagements ahead. And in my view, I was not fully satisfied because I had 5 questions. One of them actually was pertinent about the political economy of the media in Uganda. I wanted to ask something around that, and then ask about issues to do with public universities and how the teachers there at the universities are actually withdrawing from their services without actually showing it, because they have an issue which is not being settled between them and the state.
Okay.
And there was other issues. So I think I agree with them. I told personally, and I can say it here on Baba TV for everyone who is viewing and others who are listening in, I have personally talked to the presidential, the principal private secretary. I told him that at the next engagement, it should focus, it should be themed on matters affecting the media, because we have issues. We have issues against the state. We have media houses that have been closed down, including mine. We have journalists who have been harassed. We have issues to do with the politics and the business of the media that need to be talked about. When everybody is talking about rescuing other sectors of the economy, nobody talks about the media.
Okay.
How do media survive in this environment?
Thank you.
These are issues, and I agree with them. I agree with the person who has asked that question.
Thank you, Mr. Arnett.
You're welcome, sir.
Oyo Arnett Rugendo, one of the senior journalists at least we have now in the country. Tunywa kumazzi katono bwe tukomawo abakulu bano twongere discussion. One of the questions I'm going to ask, abalowooza nti fe ababaddeyo tetwabuuza bibuuzo bikulu nnyo. Bibuuzo ki ebimu ku ebyo ba areas ki enkulu bo singa babaddeyo kwe bali badde basesira? Tujja tova eyo mukumulakooko program ganga mukatuli mukanyomero hot cup at 9 tusigaza eddakiika nga 50 okumaliza enteekateeka eno. ayagala okutwegattako genda ku Facebook page yaffe Baba Television Uganda. We are streaming live. Oyinza n'ogenda ku YouTube gye tuli obeeye ng'oyogerezeganya naffe butereevu. Nyewulidde munnamawulire Arnett Rugendo mu studios, Sir Simon Muyanga Lutaaya, Batte ne Andrew Irumba nga tukubaganya ebirowoozo ku nsonga nga bw'oziwulira. Obubaka buteekeyo ku social media. Oyinza n'okozesa personal handle zaffe at Adam Kungu, at Muyanga Lutaaya. at Baba TV era nayo tujja kuba tubusangayo tuberenga tutamba ebigambo. Well, gasinaba kudde wassa Simon Muyanga Lutaibeka guwatandise. Do you think, okay, what do you think are those pertinent issues, those key areas we should have looked at, we should have addressed to the president that we did not?
It's soka program when wajita hot cup na yesi na hot cup yona. At least for the symbolism, singo tuwadde hot cup wano. Wanga na atadeko esi na ye enyo. Kakati symbolism. Singa mutuwa hot cup.
Wanze kujana kubalaba.
Naye away from that, waliwo ababuuziza ebibuuzo nga bikulu. Naye abamu babibuuziza bubi. Aba abadde batya omukulu, abadde bakola batya. Abamu ne baagala ndowooza kubanga babalabye nti tubalaba ku TV. N'alyoka azimba n'akola sentence nama, because when you spend a lot of time okwogerera ekibuuzo kyennyini kibula. So buuza a direct question. So ebibuuzo kankugambe nti ekisooka omuntu wabuuza ku vandalism kyo kyabadde ekibuuzo kituufu kubanga kikonsaninga twebuuza ani oyo amenya asala ebikondo by'amasannyalaze. Ani oyo ku lwomukaaga nali mpuliriza ku radio ku Capital omusajja akulira ndowooza Uganda Electricity Transmission UETCL ng'agamba nti so far cost gye twakayinkalinga 16 billion. So far loss jetwakakola mu ebyo byakamenyewa 16 billion. Kati nga twejja kwetaaga billion nga 3 okuzaawo ebyakoze ki ebyamenyeddwa. Weebuuza omuntu agenda ku masannyalaze volts ndowooza emitwalo 3 bugumu kyo bwaliko ku ye neri society jabakulembera. Who is that person? Number 2, oyina president batulaze bamuntu nsolo abali balumbye Uganda entoloko babalaba ku TV. Babalaba ku TV nga balaga bamuntu nsolo ADF, I mean UPDF yakwata nga boogera ne New Vision ekera ne batulaga bamuntu nsolo abadde balumbye Uganda ngegenda saanawo. It is pertinent. Naye President bwogenda n'ekibuuzo nakyogeddeko ku ntandikwa bwogenda ng'ogenze kubuuza ku byabadde mu America olina abuuza ekibuuzo nti President waliwo betugamba abamenya abali kusaanyawo layini z'amasannyalaze. President n'agamba nti eyo ensonga ffe tetunabagidisikasinga. Lwaki kiri kyobaddeko togenda kita omubuuze President ebikola amakulu byebiki Jolly, because you see it is concerning to us as a country. That's why mawulire gaffe tuli kukiwandiikako tuli kukyogerako. So but if the president of the country is not aware of what is happening, nabuuza ne mama Nabbanja n'agamba obuzibu bw'amaanyi nnyo president tuyambye nnyo nti ensonga eno ogenda giyingiramu. But it's a very big issue and you don't think there is a reason okubuuza follow up question. Number 2, tulina mu ggwanga muno mutabani w'omukulu president bamuyita Muhoozi Lugaba. Omwaka guno gwonna tugumaze gwe twogera kino omukulu n'ayogera ku buli nsonga. Kenya ngenda kubalumba ngenda kubakuba nagamba namawulire you are terrorists. Ne president yabadde mu America yagamba kituufu some journalists are terrorists yakkiriza ne mutabani we okitegeera. N'abuuza omutabani w'omukulu Mwami Museveni is going to be agenda kuba yakatufuga emyaka 40 kisanja kino kinagwerako. He will be 82. Waliwo group y'abayaaye bali walimbu tava ku main
group
y'abayaaye
tofumye
bayaaye of course
awagizi
bayaaye bagala kubba president. Buli muntu n'avaayo saa zino n'agamba kati president Sebo gwe twagala mu 2026 muyaaye mufere. Olowooza obufere omanyi bali basikansawo kubanga obufere bwa njawulo. Waliwo bali abagenda mu old park n'akusala ensawo oyo mufere era muyaaye. Naye waliwo n'abafera nga baferera mu suuti nga mwenyamba mu kitengi kino ekirungi najja wano ku TV n'ayogera oluzungu oba olusoga naye nga mufere. N'omubuuza aluyali n'omuzza ebbali kubanga you see tuwangalira mu ggwanga muno tetuwangalira wabweru wali. We meet these guys, we talk to them. Ambuuza Ruya, do you believe that Museveni should continue being our president at 82? Yeah, but all of them outside the camera, they will tell you this is the problem. Including those ones who are organizing this thing, those ones who are in Museveni's orbit. All of them believe the direction we are taking. Look at Lugendo, my friend. He used to be a singer of Museveni's praise songs. But these days, those ones who are supporting Museveni's son, they are the leading people telling us that Chintu cha Museveni chavadda kumulamwa. Muhoozi yatugamba NRM doesn't no longer represent Ugandans. That is Museveni's son. So, kate oyenena, if Museveni's son, you think you can cry more than they believed? Gwe kungofiridwa mama wo nze nevuluketi ne sansabaga babuuza atabadde muyita atya kubanga Mutabani ali wali yetanyega. So Omutabani alidde mu kintu kino lyo nebbanga agambye ekintu kya Museveni kyavadda ku mulama tekitali presenting Uganda. Gwe omuyaye simanyi oba ofubutuka wa Lwengo simanyi biki ogamba tova ku mail kyogamba ogenda kwagala NRM okusinga Muhoozi. What is your possibility okulya mu kintu kino oluvannyuma lwa Museveni okusinga Muhoozi? Yakugambye nanyini kintu nti ekino ekintu kyaffe kitubaguza kyavunda dda kyavadda ku mulama no longer represent Ugandans, and for you are telling me tova ku main. Of course oli muyaye oli mufere, you want to kufera president oyagala mubba sente. That's the only thing. Those are the real issues. The president, Mutabani, he has abused all the principles, all the laws in the books relating to how a serving military officer must behave. All of them under the statute. He has abused all of them. And when he was in America, he was saying, you see, you don't punish people for everything they do. But he has punished others before. He has punished Muhoozi. He has punished Tumukunde. He has punished Besigye for saying things that he believes are, Sejusa. Even up to us, we are talking now. You don't know whether Sejusa is in the country. You don't know whether he is living. You don't know whether he is dead. You don't know whether he is what. And now he is a retired major. He's a retired officer. But you can't know whether he is still in the country or not. For saying things that the president didn't want to hear. And Muhoozi is saying the same things. And the president is saying you cannot punish everything. And no journalists on us said anything. They were there, Mr. President, Your Excellency, sir, thank you very much. You were journalists and you were there, thank you very much. What you have done is so important. You have done a lot in the economy. You were journalists. In journalism, what we say, what the principles of journalism, we look at one of the things, the things that are not normal. You see, you leave the what is normal, what is known, and you go for the unknown. You leave, for example, they say when the normal thing we normally use, embawe ruma omuntu, simawulire fetunoonya muntu ng'alumye ki kati gwe nodda State House n'oga president webale nnyo webalire ddala anti oluguudo walutukolera waleese enkulaakulana naye president thank you very much you have put up so many poverty alleviation whatever, but the problem is that those at PDM people don't know how to access PDM. You're a journalist. So kati what kind of journalism are you doing when you are there to drum up president's support?
Sir Simon Muyanga retired. Beka byayo gira.
I think
you're partly responsible for it. You are what agati abamawulire balazo mutindo gw'ekibogwe as a senior journalist, as someone that has mentored so many journalists. You're partly responsible for this.
You are simply saying that when he says you call me a senior journalist, but you want to attribute the stupidity, the apparent stupidity to me, meaning I'm a senior journalist in stupidity, so you say I'm exporting. But I want to handle the three things, because I want to remain systematic to what I started with.
Yeah.
I want to look at, each time to look at the three parties equally. Let me start from the party of the journalists. One, the journalists disappointed me in one way. As a teacher, instructions are part of the examinations. And we say, read the instructions carefully and answer questions that follow. If they say, answer 3 questions in all, and you answer 4 questions, you have already misfired, even when all questions are correct. Mm-hmm. When we say answer question, only one question is section A and 2 others in section B, and you tend to get all the 3 is a question in section A, you have already misfired. Now, I was embarrassed. The president says, each of you is going to ask one question. Each. And he said the instructions are one question. And then you see a senior journalist trying to behave different and say, and perhaps to another smaller one. That is stupid. Why didn't you integrate the small one in this big one at once? Somebody else, somebody very senior in this country I respect, asked the first question, went to the second question, she even attempted to ask a third question. You cannot even understand the simple instructions. Number two, I think relates to language. The person I admire most in this industry is called Larry King Live. One of the best I have found. Larry King Live hosts Mr. Museveni and asks questions in 15 minutes that Ugandan journalists will take 2 hours to ask and will never be exhausted.
No, they failed to ask in 2 hours.
And Mr. Museveni, 15 minutes with his interviews, you need to go and watch this guy on Larry King Live on CNN and on online and see. 15 minutes. And he has taken this whole president of Museveni throughout the whole country and asked as many questions as we would have asked here in 3 hours. Reason? We do not summarize our questions. And you know, the more you ask a question and prolong it, you intend to start to answer it. Go and see this interview, the questions you people asked, and see, at some time you're even attempting to answer the questions. You have already given a man a key way. How to answer these questions. He has a key to start it. Those of us who know music know what it means. So, that also was part one. Number three, that's for journalists. Remi Batte, who was asking questions to the president in a free environment in the US, had the opportunity to ask the big questions. I believe that if Remi Batte was part of this list here, and the organizers were near her, she would not have the liberty to ask the questions she asked. Okay. But because she was aware, she asked those pertinent questions. So are you now exonerate for a second?
Does that now exonerate the journalists that you think did not meet the standards?
I want to
you're looking at the environment where they were asking the questions.
There's one problem. Me, I even live a happy life every day. Abanumpu bagamba muyanga atukuba. Aba FDC baganti muyanga yalia. Aba enani baganti that guy is that bad. You understand? One of the reasons I never appeared on that is that they think I am anti them, and I live that good life. So I believe some of you are living under the fear of not being invited another time. But let me tell you, Adam Kungu, Mr. Museveni loves intelligent people. Mr. Museveni loves critical people. And the people I have worked with, I have worked with Linda Nabusai. I have worked with Ofono Bondo. I have worked with Doni Wanyama. I have worked with Chris Obore. I'm in their league. You know how Museveni has been spotting them? They go to these pressers, ask critical questions, and somehow he asks his team to find these people so that he can have a one-on-one with them thereafter. And that's why he has spotted all our best. I can tell that with due respect, Mr. Ofono Opondo was one of those super journalists we have had. Linda Nabusai was just very good.
Tamale
Mirundi was super. Doni Wanyama, too good, and Chris Obore. He picks them from their critical mind, knowing that they are intelligent and critical, and then converts them to go and do a good job for him. It is them, in their own thing, for need of doing things stupidly, wanting to contain their jobs, forgetting how this man identified them. How they behave stupidly or low in substance is because they want to survive, but in spotting them. So, hard questions that not stop Mr. Museveni from inviting. Lastly, you said if we had attended, which questions do we ask? These are the critical questions I expected if I had appeared, what I wanted Mr. Museveni to explain. And I'm going to summarize it in 2-4. The things that Ugandans want to hear Museveni talk about now are: 1, land evictions. All over. Everybody is concerned. You don't know who is next.
Which was asked.
Which was asked. The question number 2, the human rights abuses that would want to shield. This case of the National Unity Platform guys, no. The things they're talking about are correct. They're only talking about them the wrong way. Their packaging is wrong, but they're talking about real issues. Their concerns of abductions, human rights abuses, disappearances, brought to arrest in drones, and so. Although them they tend to vulgarize them and package them wrong, but the issues are serious. So would have loved him to answer. First of all, is he aware? Number two, if he's aware, does he know who is responsible? This is government doing. Question number three would have been the Muhoozi succession talk. I have been here, you know. Some people are saying, there is, I think one idiot wrote somewhere and saying, I and Tamale Mirundi are promoters of the Muhoozi project. The people, my viewers, do not understand how the Muhoozi question comes into my favorite, because the guests I host talk about, so I find myself talking about it, not because I support Muhoozi, I've never met him, I don't have his contact, he does not need me, I don't need him, we have no business together. But I would have asked because my audiences seem to be battling with this question.
Okay.
Who is this Muhoozi who asks, who does anything, behaves anything, and that kind of thing? And the last question that I want Mr. Museveni to ask, and which never appeared,
I thought you would have asked two questions.
the high cost of lending. People are getting out of business every day. People are dying of hypertension, diabetes. People are losing homes. Marriages are breaking down because whoever has borrowed a loan, whoever has picked credit in our country, 90% of them fail to pay back the money. Why? The cost of doing business in Uganda is just horrible. What plan does Mr. Museveni have for our country? These are the questions that I've asked. Not to ask him when are you good, because they fear that when Muyanga is here, he's going to ask the president, by the way, are you beginning to pack your things and leave? I don't want him to leave because I never participated in his coming. He knows when to leave, or those who brought him know when to take him away.
Same question.
For me, let me begin with what I would have asked. Although I appreciate those that asked actually pertinent issues, especially about Facebook, power vandalism, the insurgency. But the Muhoozi question is definitely one of those that I would have asked, and I would be very brief with asking Mr. President. The EPDF Act is very clear. It's having armed officers are not supposed to participate in politics. But your very own son, General Muhoozi, is talking about anything and everything. Do you have another replica of the UPDF Act? If maybe they have another constitution and the UPDF Act that Muhoozi is reading and is not reading this other one that the General Tumukunde is read, that maybe would be, that would have been my question. And would have expected an answer in regards to whether actually he okays what Muhoozi says on Twitter. That would be my question.
Well, tukumule katono tusigaze dakika ndono nnyo tukomewo tumalize tovaawo tujja kungu hot car part 9 program ganga mukamwe tuli oba kabuteku 07556 oba ku Facebook ne ku YouTube. Personal handle yange ne handle ya Baba TV, Baba Television Uganda ku Facebook, @Baba TV ku Twitter. Tusigaze dakika 3 zokka tumalize enteekateeka eno. Nina sasa muganda wange Batte ne mwami Andrew Irumba nga tulira ensonga nga bw'ozuulira. Well, mudakikazi nisembayo njagala I need to pick your thoughts ku bimu ku ebyo president byazzeemu, specifically ku nsonga ya torture, because twamubuuzizza what his take is ku alleged or allegations za torture n'okukuumira abantu nnyo obudde bungi mu kadukulu, you know, n'ebirala in that regard. Nakuga nti ekibiina kye kyakulembera ekya NRM, I don't know if I can say what he said verbatim. He said NRM is very famous for guarding human rights. Era nayongerako nti government ye, his government is against extrajudicial killings and arrests without trial. I don't know.
So who is doing those things in his government if his government is opposed to them?
Let me start with you, Simon. What do you make of his response?
The Mr. Museveni's response, it is what any president would say. It's usual. It's plain. It is factual in his own understanding. That's what any president would say. In fact, in Mr. Museveni's responses, why we are faulting you, those of us who have worked with him for some time know. When you see,
I've worked with him, okay.
yes, I've worked because I've been a journalist for the last 22 years under Mr.
So you
Museveni.
work with him?
Yes, what does it mean? It's exactly
Under
what it means.
his leadership or with
Whatever
him?
you want to call it. You know, you people want to show that it is devilish to work with Mr. Museveni, and people fear to say it. Working with Mr. Museveni and agreeing with him are two different things.
So Batte also works with Mr. Museveni?
Why not? So, the areas was working with Mr. Museveni under KCCA, they are all helping, even people in NUP, all of them are helping Mr. Museveni implement a manifesto he promised Ugandans. They are all working with him.
And they are being paid.
You know me, I am a teacher.
And they are being paid.
And they are being paid for it. So
Really
let nobody
understand
come here and tell you, bagamba, oyo muyanga yalia, benyini abalia, ate wega nti twale. They are eating daily and officially.
Okay.
This is what I wanted to tell you. When Mr. Museveni faces staff journalists, in his press conference, you always mark this, he will pick one paper or media house to quarrel with. When you see him saying, those guys in the monitor there, oh, they're the monitor, no, bad people, then you know they have asked him questions that bump him hard and is squeezed. This time he was polite to all of you. He did not mention any paper giving him headache. No media house did he ever even want to attack.
And Munta was not there. I mean, was never represented with among those who asked questions. Surprisingly.
You understand? If he was annoyed with anyone, if you had asked him good questions to provoke his mind and provoke I would have attacked the paper. You know, might I say, oh, those guys of CBS, but here he ended up telling us how good is his UBC. And then he confirms that actually Ndawa auni bukede. And their own bukede. But he did not attack any of us.
Okay, on the same issue, Batte, he also seemed, actually he tasked abakulembeze ku mitendera egy'enjawulo nti muripotinge obumenyi bw'amateeka buno benga tibawamba abantu mwe bakulembeza abalina okutandikirwako, bring out these issues. What did that suggest?
That he is not in touch with them because they are not reporting. He's telling them now, he's just reminding them what would ordinarily be their core duty. But summarizing this, may I believe that Mr. Museveni scored high at the press conference. The organizers scored moderately, averagely at this press conference. The journalists scored extremely poorly at this presser.
Well,
but I do not blame them much. The answer lies in the criteria of selection.
But does the NRM believe in guarding human rights, as the president said? At least as a journalist, you'll be here for some time. You know this?
From 2020, in the last part of 2020 up to now, the most dominant story we are reporting about people are being kidnapped, people are being kidnapped, people we find killed, people are being tortured. And you see, President Museveni believes that the rest of us are idiots. That's one of my biggest problems with Museveni is to think that everybody in this country is an idiot other than himself. That the rest of us don't stay here, don't live in this country, we don't know what is happening. Therefore, he can blatantly, with a straight face like this, he looks at the camera like this, and he says total falsehoods. You are going to, you're worried about the one I was going to use.
You can continue.
So he sits there and says total falsehoods, and he believes we don't stay in the same country like him. Because he has lost touch completely. Museveni has lost touch with what is happening in this country. That is one of the biggest reasons, my biggest problem with this Bayai. Mbu Museveni tova ku main, Museveni tova ku main. That is my biggest problem. With the man who was already off the main and somebody, whatever they call themselves. Baliao, nalaba yali minister, no, actually minister Evelyn Anite. Agamba ezo zi generators embadde moogerako tezagaana kolera, zagaana okwaka. Fe tukyalina amasanyalaze gakyaliko. Museveni masanyalaze gali luddawo. Okwatako kati n'engalo bw'oti tolina ky'oba. No, because you see, mu bitegeeza okubeera president. In what it means, because you see, okubeera n'obuyinza, being with power, what do you want to use it for? If I sit there and ask Mr. Museveni, what do you want to use power for? What can he tell you? Other than personal aggrandizement, feeling that I am the president of Uganda, what else is he using it for? Look at, I had him on TV that very day, and even when he was speaking to Remy Bahati, he says, this economy has grown at 6%. It is better than most of the economies in the world. But your population is growing almost at 4%. So if you're having an economy that is growing at 6% and a population that is growing at 4%, it means your economy is growing at 2%. And the journalists there said, President, you see, when the economy is growing at 2%, because if the people are increasing by 4% and the economy is increasing by 6%, it means that it is increasing by 2%.
So that does it mean that even the small or the few questions that you think were important about all these they didn't receive answers that are satisfactory?
I think it's most of those things that he said were lies, and you did not put him to task because you say journalist. I normally watch a lot of American TV, American radio, American. When the president is lying, they call him, he's fact-checked in real time. Because if the president says that...
an opportunity for that, you see.
No, you ask a subsequent question.
Yeah, but
you don't go there like you are stuck in the head that I have to ask about PDM, as if it is the most important. If the president is saying that in Uganda, kidnapping abantu, what happened to Jamshid Kavuma, who was released by the military court the Mengo court the other day after 32 days? What happened to the 20 people? I mean, his government, his own government said that it killed 54 people in 2020. What do you call that? Isn't that extrajudicial killing? What is the definition of extrajudicial killing? Will you kill people without just subjecting them to the law? Because you can kill people, of course, but there is a law that you have to follow. Which law did they follow to kill those people? That is the number they are agreeing that they killed. But we know for a fact we stay in this town. They killed more than that. 54.
You think there were more than that?
No. We don't believe. We were there at the mortuary there at Mulago when they were bringing them. We counted until the Aluhanga said, no, get away. Because we had counted more than 60. So let me tell you, so if the president says that for us we don't treat our people, but we've seen them, we have covered them on our TV, and the following day, what is most annoying, the following day the media houses come and publish, Museveni speaks about torture, and he says, without even bringing back the background of those ones who have been subject to torture, whom they have themselves documented. If the president says that for us, we don't kill people, we don't torture people. We have seen them. The president says we don't torture people. And he's on there passing out to Abasirikale and Agamba, Chagulanyi twamukuba bulungi. You remember that? Agamba, twamukuba bulungi ngali Arua. He's the president okuba bulungi. Mumateka ga Uganda alo bakiriza okuba omuntu. So the same man who is saying we don't torture people, he's the very man I want to celebrating, congratulating his people for beating somebody. The same man who is every single day telling the judges don't release the people. He will tell you that you see the problem why some people spend a lot of time on remand because we have a few judicial officers. But he's the very president. Every single day says you cannot release criminals. Sewanyan and Muhammad Segini have spent now more than a year on remand. You know the reason why they are not being released? Because the president told the judges, you are not releasing these people. So at the end of the day,
at least that we are not sure.
No, we know. No, we know. We stay in this town. I stay here. I am not from Mars. I stay here. I tell you, abalamuzi president Simulundi gumu sebiri sesatu agambye balamuzi mukola ensobi okuledizinga bana abantu bafe. Okitegeera kubanga emisango tesegirinya gye bamuvunana. In the past, they have released people on very charges, even more bigger charges than them. Never mazoma kamulamba muchi mukomera kubanga president yagamba nti ffe eje misango tetugiwera bail era n'avumanya abalamuzi olw'okukola ekyo. Therefore president bw'omubuuza ekibuuzo nti emijjuzo mu makomera kyekigivuddeko n'akugamba nti abalamuzi tulina batono, si kituufu, because we know it is the political. It is.
So you're talking about the last time when he suggested nti suspects in capital offenses tubaina kubanga baweebwa bail.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He has said that and he has not even amended the law. But by default, because we say kiragiro okusaba kwa mukamawo kiba kiragiro. You get? Kakati because bw'okyogera buli lunaku n'ogamba saabalamuzi nti tolerezing abantu bano abalamuzi buli lunaku, including the last time when he was at the judiciary ku lunaku lwa Kiwanuka. N'agamba abalamuzi my biggest problem mwe muta abantu. N'obuuza emitawaana ku ttaka n'agamba abalamuzi muve mu misonga gy'ettaka ayagala baladisi be bagikolako n'agoba mu judiciary mu ttaka. So most of all these problems actually affecting this country, when you follow them, medicine ko mu kibuuzo kye bani be yayogeddeko. Minister w'ebyettaka Sam Mayanja, baladisi simanya Rusoke, simanya all of them, the problem on land evictions, all of them, the people mentioned are from State House. So all the problems we have in this country called Uganda start and end in Museveni's house. And if he comes and he pretends as if nothing is happening, and the journalist is my biggest problem. You call yourself senior because you are in 50 years. That's the only thing. The only senior.
Now that's where we differ with Batte.
No, the only senior.
Batte has now removed off the journalistic veil and is now a politician. This is now the issue. Because you can hear that he is outrightly opinionated on some of these issues. That when he goes to speak critical of the regime, he speaks like an opposition politician. Not a journalist who simply wants facts on these ones. He lays out the issue and goes ahead to deeply debate it politically. But
yeah, what should we do
no
here?
No one else can tell you that.
No, you see, Muyangaluta, where you get it wrong. You see, listen. I know this. I'm doing a PhD for information. I have 2 degrees in journalism, so I know about journalism, a lot of it. One of the reasons where in a country where there is no opposition, journalism does play the opposition because no one is going to bring out these issues I am bringing out.
I want to tell the public that because this country has a feeble opposition, we journalists have taken up the duty to be the opposition. Are you saying that?
No, we must. We must.
But also, that's not also, I think, that's not partly correct.
What is not correct?
Sir Simon Muyanga thinks that he is a politician who must be critical. Critical thinking.
Who should have an opinion?
No, not critical thinking. Not critical thinking.
What Mr. Batte is doing is he's critiquing.
What I'm opposed to is his opinion coming out stronger than the journalistic facts.
And who says that a journalist must not have an opinion? When you slap somebody here, I should not have an opinion to say you are wrong.
You must have it, but when must you express it and how? You must have an opinion, but how do you express and when?
Now, you see, this Museveni's government has captured every other person's mindset that you're not supposed to think broadly. When you think broadly, you know the Museveni to corner, he says, now you see this journalist, he's now opposition. But an often opponent, Uganda media said that can actually say anything.
Yes.
Because Ofunopondo is not a journalist.
When he was a journalist, but supporting the movement, how was he speaking?
And what happened? He was taken away to go where he belongs. But I want me and Batte, who have remained, because Batte has had opportunity to join the government, so I have had opportunity to join the government, and we have chosen to remain here. We must act like we have remained here.
This is what I think. Sir Simon Muyanga retire, if you can tell him that Irumba Mutoro now is done with the and he has been speaking for a long time. For me, this was you should not bow down or cow down people who are critical in whichever sector of society that they emerge from, including media. Yes. If we do that, we are killing our own. People must be critical of everything, wherever they are. Even in the church. By the way, let me tell you, you see these churches, the primary role of these churches, the religion, is to fight for the oppressed, to speak for those without the mouth to speak.
And then the primary role of journalists? Let's go to the primary role of journalists.
The same thing.
To speak for the oppressed.
You speak by writing. You find out the issues that are affecting the public, and why were you invited to
inform, educate, and entertain.
What are you informing? What are you informing?
To inform, educate, and entertain.
I know,
right?
But what are you informing?
And journalism tells us,
what creates your information?
Tells us that when you have your own opinion, like Mr. Batte has, declare so that you are now speaking as you, not as a journalist.
No.
So, are the opinions of Mr. Batte, the ones that are saying, the opinion of the Uganda Radio Network, or his opinion?
You see, the problem I have with Simon Myanga's, the problem I have with Simon Myanga's thinking and deliberation is, you see, I've told you I am speaking from a point of, really, my position is very strong on these matters, like critical thinking. A journalist, a person who is called a journalist, first of all, you have to differentiate between two issues. First, when Uganda read a story I write for Uganda Radio Network, that story will be devoid of any biases that I might have. Yeah. I have written about Museveni. Actually, I write, you read things I write about Museveni. When you read them, do you see a person who is critical of Museveni? But when I am here to try to help the people listening to this program dissect, understand that if Museveni meets journalists, what does it mean? You get, you have the news. I provide the analysis to the news. You get, I provide the critical thinking to the news. Because you see, when the action has happened, against our president, what does it mean? Why should anyone mind? And you cannot do that without necessarily bringing out an opinion. Because you see, journalism, who has told you that when you are a journalist, you must not have an opinion? The only problem is that if that opinion is disguised as a story, you get. But now here, I don't work for Batte Television. I am here to give analysis to what happened. Right. So there is no contradiction whatsoever. And actually, I think a better journalist that this country needs is not a one who is going to look at things and say, you see, they are like this when they are not like that. No, a journalist is a person who is going to help people understand what is going on. Because they tell us, Vox Populi, we are the voices of the people. Yes. So if we are the voice of the people, because everybody cannot be on Batte Television discussing this matter. I have to be there.
I've spent an hour with you. I have spent an hour with you here.
Andrew, make your point.
Because I'm told.
No, I'm told there is some guy in Uganda. So it is a category.
Let me just give you a quick comment on this, and then I go to the main topic. The government of this president, Museveni, has actually, in a way, gagged every other sector. That's why you feel like Lutaya thinks when a journalist becomes critical, even of the wrongs happening, you're entering politics. Yes, he says, you stick to educate.
No.
Simon, you have spoken for a long time.
We are here speaking critical things and say we are gagged. That's why I disagree. You say we are gagged, but we are here speaking every shit that we want to speak. And you say we are gagged.
Can I give you a paper?
I cannot agree with you.
Can I give you a paper?
Okay.
And does he know, by the way, does he know that when we are in journalism schools, one of the topics actually we do journalism and politics, because there is a thin line between journalism and politics.
You're right, Mr. Muya. And he's a teacher.
Make your point.
Very good. So now, I don't want people to keep hoodwinking themselves that the role of media is to educate, to inform. But what are you educating? Are you manufacturing what you're educating?
Andrew,
you are reading from the society.
Andrew,
and so you are speaking for the society.
Can you listen to each other? As you're making your point, you also think about what Sir Simon Myangalutai has told you. Boganti, the Museveni-led government has gagged almost every sector in this country. Ngoli Kubamba TV.
And what I'm saying is has captured the brain. Says has captured the brain of everyone.
The two don't really.
Is my brain captured the way I've been speaking?
Muyanga woke up from home from 6 has been on air from 6 to 11 now. You cannot allow Mutoro to speak for 10 minutes and go, and even tomorrow will come back here. Really? Okay. What I'm saying is, you see, Muyanga will tell you, we are here, we are speaking.
Yes.
But do you see the difficulty he speaks with? Do you see?
Really?
Yes, the difficulty he speaks with. Anyway, that was not even the point. The issue the president raised about his government being, I think, number one in protection of human rights. This is my submission. Mendo Zebra voice here was killed at night.
Zebra.
Yes, Mendo here. He was killed. The president came out and admitted
that is people.
Yes, the people are killed. They also acknowledged that they killed 28, I think.
54. No, 20, 30, is it 30 something?
28 he accepted. Those were wrongly killed by stray bullets. He acknowledged 28. The others he said
were rioters.
But now that has to be proved by court. And even if they were rioters, are you supposed to shoot at a rioter? You're supposed to
constrain,
to
shoot in the legs.
Yes. So even that narrative is wrong. But let's go with the other one. The biggest achievement this NRM has been telling people, and which actually people have been buying, is that at least on issues of security and human rights, they have been taken. Now, themselves are admitting that actually they are committing these atrocities. The primary objective why the president entered the bush in 81 was exactly what is happening today. So I don't understand today why you think abambagamba tova kumaini ochariko mzee tova kumaini eyawa eyokataka eyawa tova kumaini eyawa no last atola bude wange muyanga sasa mwana kamalirize nakano. I also saw President Museveni very tired with a system that does not support him. Everything ends in his state house. And even on that day when I was with the General Isoke, the anti-corruption unit head, the one who replaced Kano Afande Nakalema, he was also complaining that here in the state house, people are bringing issues from the village, issues of land. But during those days when we had just come, an LC1 system would solve a land matter. Why? LC1 system is your neighbor. The other person trying to steal your land, this LC1 man has been grazing and tethering his goats there. He knows where your Kalamala ends, where your land starts and ends. The LC1. Now, that LC1 today does not have the power to actually come and resolve this land conflict. Yeah. They have to bring it up to the Supreme Court or to State House. But the person you're bringing, now they had brought these matters at the Isoke's office. General Isoke is here in Kampala. He even doesn't know your village. He even doesn't know the people there. He even doesn't know their demarcations. But he's the one you have said, come and solve our problem. Forgetting the LC1, who actually is your neighbor, who stays with you. So when the president was saying, those elected leaders, the RDC, the LC1, sorry, not the RDC, but the LC1 system, the elected leaders, the MP, member of parliament, the woman MP, what are they doing? Why? It is because he himself has destroyed the structures of leadership. And so finally it is coming up to you. It is eating up your feeling. You are solving a lot of issues that would have been otherwise been solved at the ground. So if finally it catches up with you.
Muganda wange Andrew Katsabe Rumba kadde kafika wedde yompozi.
Era irumba kwa gwere kutokanyo.
So Nkomao, I should not buttress Rumba.
Onagambye Jeroni Silva Gambie Batte has made this show very meaningful. Bring him more and more. Onoye Magi Balinda Agambye Batte, you have made my day. Ronnie Silva Nagamba ono, yes, journalists can be described as opposition after reporting the things the way they are without following the regime, regime's command. Francis Nkuchirani Nagamba, the Euro man is challenging everybody in the studios and I love it. Okay, wali nyumgana wange. Onagamba omuntu badde mbuyinza okumala emyaka 4 naye olina ennyonta nga eyakatandika n'ebirala. Mwebale nnyo abagoberera wano. Onagamba okay, webale. Bakabuyi tusobola kubanga tumalayo eddakiika zaffe zaweddeyo dda. Ndowooza ule muwe seconds 10 ngavuga nti musibe bulungi. Muyanga bage musibe bulungi.
Tandika nange musibe bulungi.
Mwebale nnyo batte.
Ekisema njagala kugamba ensisibula njagala kugamba ekigambo kimu nti tuge eggwanga lino Museveni will be 82. I am 30. Okitegeera? I have more time in this country. than him. He's in the past, he's in the evenings of his life here. So his decisions zagenda okola zigenda ku affecting us okusinga wezigenda mu affecting. Therefore, it will be buliaza man on my side to come here and don't say it as it is. We will say it because, and I know Munyanga tells you, every single day I speak back about hard drone, Nayangambi on hard drone, Jerry, the one see. Which part of Gwanga Lifananati tell you